The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we're thrilled to be coming to you on this Tuesday morning. And I got to tell you at the start of this is going to be our last Tuesday for a little while as we're doing April and getting into May. We've got a lot of other things that we're going to film. So we're going to go to a Wednesday, Thursday schedule only. So I just want to give you guys that programming note. And then when that's over, we'd like to hear from you guys, whether you missed the Tuesday show or whether you like the film stuff more. We're going to let you guys decide on that. But thrilled to be here with you on this Tuesday morning because it's the third Tuesday of the month. And you know what that means. In just a little while, in our second hour today, we're going to welcome Dr. Linda Copeland to come and be with us. She is a board-certified behavior analyst and she is a developmental pediatrician. She's both of those things. That's why we call her the unicorn, because it seems like those things, like that might be a myth. It's too good to be true, right? But it isn't. There is one of them, and Dr. Linda Copeland fills those shoes. So she's going to be with us answering some of the questions that you guys have sent in. But we're going to be with you live for the next 2 hours talking about autism from a 360-degree perspective, and I'm thrilled to be able to do that. I got to tell you, if it looks like I have extra bags under my eyes, I totally want to blame that on fabulous friends that we got to spend some time with yesterday. One of our favorite viewers and friends of the show happened to be in town and was at Disneyland, and so my son and I drove down to spend some time with her and part of her extended family and her lovely, lovely son, who just absolutely melts my heart every time I see a picture of him. And I'm talking about Carrie Mallory Thompson. We want to give a shout out to her. Autism Will Not Define My Son is her site, and she does some incredible things on that site. I urge you to check it out. But we got to spend some good quality time with the boys last night on the city walk outside Disneyland. It was really, really fun. But I have extra bags under my eyes and an extra gravitas to my voice this morning because of it. I've burned the candle at too many ends. In any case, regardless of that, we're going to be with you live for the next 2 hours, and we've got an incredible show for you. But I always like to remind you that this entire show is meant to be interactive. It's only as good as your input. So Kelby is going to show you some of the different ways that you can participate, some of the different things, some of the different ways you can be watching the show. While he's doing that, I'm going to remind you that our homepage is autism-live.com. When you go there, lots of things to do, but one of the most important things is that you can watch the live show there by clicking on the triangle, excuse me, or you can send us messages via the live feature, which is just to the side there. If you put your cursor in the box that says your question, all you have to do is type and hit enter, and magically it will show up here on my screen, and you and I can have a conversation. But much more important than that, you can have a conversation with the experts and the guests that we have here, and I know that's just a wonderful treat, right? It's totally free, totally anonymous. We do ask that you are specific with your question about who you want to ask. Use names instead of he and she so that I know exactly who you're talking about. And it's always useful to let us know where in the world you are so that if we're giving a mention of resources, that we're not telling you something that isn't available in your area. That would make me feel bad. We always like to remind you at the start of the show that while we have many experts that are on the show, I thank you very much, but I'm not one of them. I am an autism mom. I'm a former teacher. I'm proud of both of those things. And I'm thrilled that I get the opportunity to be on this journey with you. And my whole purpose in being here is to help you in whatever way I can, in whatever way you need. This is not a one-size-fits-all situation, right? Everybody needs something different, and there are lots of resources that are out there, not enough. But I know as time goes on, we can together hold hands, create more resources, but let's use the ones that are there. And if I can save you 5 minutes and $5, boy, I'm a happy woman for the day. And if I can do more than that, woohoo! Good, good, good. So, but don't mistake me for an expert. Just to mistake me for a cheerleader. Well, don't mistake me for that either, because that's not entirely, not in the traditional sense. Cheerleader in a non-traditional sense. How's that? And somebody who's just passionate about this journey, passionate about our community, by the way, which to me has a whole lot of people in it, because that's all of the parents, the teachers, the practitioners, the aunts, the uncles, everyone who cares about somebody who's on the autism spectrum, and of course, everybody who is on the autism spectrum. We're all a part of that community in my eyes. So that's my say on that. Now, we like to start every morning with something we fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. This is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym, and we try to figure out, what are the experts talking about here? What does this have to do with me? How can knowing this term help me to get to something else? Okay. I believe this is the first time that we are doing this definition on the show, which is a little shocking to me personally. But today's jargon term is autoimmune disorder. No, we're not talking about the Audubon and driving crazily on the Audubon, right? So let's take a look at what our actual definition is. Actual definition, autoimmune disorder. An autoimmune disorder occurs when the body's immune system attacks and destroys healthy body tissue by mistake. There are more than 80 types of autoimmune disorders. And I want to take just a second. We didn't want to convolute this too much and list all the different areas of the body that can be affected by autoimmune disorders, because it's basically head to toe, absolutely everything. It can be major organs. It could be your skin, it could be your kidneys, it can be absolutely anything. I think we tend to think of these things in the pocket that we understand, either because we have an autoimmune disorder or a loved one does, and it seems to strike in a specific place. But it really, end to end, it's pretty comprehensive, head to toe, attacking healthy tissue. So let's take a look at what our working definition is to try to consolidate this a little bit more. An autoimmune disorder, it's when an individual's immune system does not distinguish between healthy tissue and harmful substances, and therefore it sets off a reaction that destroys normal tissues. So when you stop and consider, think about somebody who's having an allergy attack, right? If you get something up your nose that's inappropriate, your body says, foreign substance, this is not okay, and you begin to sneeze. And the body is trying to eject it from your nose so that you don't inhale it and it doesn't harm you. It's a natural form of defense. We'll sneeze. Now, sometimes people are allergic to something where the body says, I'm identifying that substance as something that's a foreign and dangerous substance. And maybe it's innocuous to 9 out of 10 people, but to the person who's allergic to it, their body begins to sneeze and tries to, if they're smelling it, and tries to expel it. Well, sneezing is a pretty violent thing, and especially for those of you who've ever had an allergy attack that started with sneezing, it can be a very violent thing. And if you think about how violent the body works in that way to expel something, and transfer that to, say that there's something happening internally and the body is mounting its defenses to try to fight against it. Now, we want that when it's a flu. We want that when it's a disease. We want that kind of reaction from the body. But when the body is tricked into thinking that healthy tissue is a foreign substance or something that is toxic and begins to mount the battle to eject it, it can be something that's really devastating to somebody's health. And we're going to be talking about autoimmune a lot today, so I don't want to get too into it. But I think you're going to see why this is a conversation that we would have on Autism Live. I personally have an autoimmune disorder, and it's something that I struggle with every single day. And I, I don't think that I had any idea when things began to happen, and I think I always had leaned towards autoimmune disorder, but there was a period of time in my life when I had crossed the line, and couldn't manage like I had been able to for so many years. I wondered why everybody was just so much more hale and hearty than I was. But I managed, I was able to do all the things that I wanted to do, even if maybe it was probably a little bit harder for me. And then a day came when the line was crossed and I couldn't do all the things that I wanted to do anymore. And it was kind of devastating for me in a big, big way. But I recall being at a conference, and there was a moment, I'd just been diagnosed and I was still kind of struggling with the reality of all of it. And there was a moment when I was interviewing a group of moms. We were standing in a circle and I'd finished the interview, and as I was turning off everything so that we were no longer recording, one of the moms was saying to the other one about, oh, well, but that's part and parcel of an autoimmune disorder. And my head kind of, whipped around. I said, oh, you have an autoimmune disorder too? And she said, well, yes, I think probably everyone here does. This was an autism conference. And all of the women in the circle, they were like, oh, yeah, no, I do. Yeah, no, I have one. Everyone, all of the women in the circle. And it just sort of rang a bell in my head. And someone said, oh, well, the next thing at the conference, there's a doctor that's doing a talk on the immune regulation and autism. You probably want to come with us. And I thought, well, gosh, I think I will go in. And a lot of it was over my head. I'll be honest with you. I don't have a head for science. I want it stripped down, which is why we do jargon of the day. But in any case, at one point they said, we just want to stop for a second and ask. There were a lot of moms and a few dads in the room, and they said, we want to ask how many of you have been diagnosed with an autoimmune disorder that have a child who's on the autism spectrum. And a sea of hands went up. I would say 98% of the hands in the room went up. And that certainly got my attention. And for the rest of the day, as I was interviewing people, when the interview was over, I said to them, I'm just curious, do you have an autoimmune disorder? And I think there was one woman the entire day who did not have an autoimmune disorder. So we're going to be talking about this today, and I've brought you a very wonderful guest who's going to be able to speak to this very eloquently. So autoimmune disorder, this is why we're talking about it on an autism show. It's very prevalent in the moms, and we're finding it's turning out to be very prevalent among our children as well. Okay, moving on, our question of the day, and this, part and parcel of everything we're talking about. So we've got this question on Facebook today, and I'm very interested to see the responses based on what I just said to you about that conference. Do you or does anyone in your family have an autoimmune disorder? We'll be looking forward to reading what your responses are. You can give us information or just say yes or no. But we're just taking a little poll there, seeing if what happened at that conference holds true everywhere. And of course, we always have a topic of the week. And the topic is something that when you have an autoimmune disorder becomes very near and dear to you, and that's working with what you have. Not saying, oh, well, why don't I have what somebody else has? Why am I not able to do this? But working with what you have. And this doesn't just apply to an autoimmune disorder. It doesn't just apply to autism, although it applies to both of those things very well. But when we can get into the mindset of, okay, this is what it is. It's kind of, along the same lines. I hadn't thought about it. We had Byron Katie on the show a couple of months ago, her book, Loving What Is. When we get to that acceptance, I don't know about always loving it, right? I'm not that highly evolved. Katie hasn't gotten me there yet. But at least getting to the acceptance of it. You don't have to be in contentment as far as I'm concerned, but the acceptance so that we're not debating it anymore. Well, this is where we are. How do we use what we have? And let's get back to work. How can we make things happen with the circumstances that we have? And I'll tell you, we got a great show for you. Some of the guests that we're going to be on the show here, Nava Paskowitz Asner is here this morning with us. She and I have been talking about doing this show for over a year, to have her talk about her story about autoimmunity and how this affects her life. And she's somebody, I can't think of anything better, because I think in a lot of ways, for me, she's the poster child of this, because to look at her, she's a beautiful, strong, capable woman, an athlete, and you would never guess that she is dealing on a regular basis with autoimmune issues. So, great guest, and we're going to be talking about that at length with her. Today is self-care. It's just because we're going to be letting go of the Tuesday shows for a while doesn't mean we're letting go of self-care. We're not. We're going to talk about the idea of taking supplements, because a lot of us need to for various and sundry reasons. We've got some autism news for you that kind of goes hand in hand with this autoimmunity. And then in the second hour, we have Dr. Linda Copeland. As I mentioned before, she's a developmental pediatrician and she's a board certified behavior analyst. She's going to be with us to answer some of your questions, some of which happen to be about autoimmune disorders. So all of that, and I know it sounds like a really deep and depressing show, but we'll find the levity where we can, right? But this is important stuff. We need to talk about it, because being healthy is something that no one should take for granted ever. And maybe if we can talk about maybe we'll help some of you to recognize if you need to see your doctor. And maybe I would love to think that there are some of you out there that we can help you before you need to get to that point. So all of that and ever so much more coming up in just a few minutes here on Autism Live. Stick with us.
Hi, I'm Kara Kaczynski, the Pocket Occupational Therapist, and we're here in Dallas, Texas at the Future Horizons Autism Super Conference. So the book is the Special Needs School Survival Guide, and it's everything you wanted to know about school. It is, okay, so it starts out with just different diagnoses that you might see, and then I explain them in clear terms, no technical jargon, and then each little diagnosis area has about, 50 to 100 activities that you can do at home or at school or cheaply and effectively. So it's just full of information that you can use right now. And the cool thing about it is at the end of every chapter are resources that you can use and access in the internet from a computer. And it's not just for kids with any diagnoses either. It's for kids that are just having trouble with handwriting or with dressing in school or transitions too. Well, both of my kids are on the autism spectrum, so it's important to me that when I learn something for other people, as I research it for occupational therapy, I want to try it at home. So then I take what works and I put it in a book, and what doesn't work gets thrown out the window. And the other thing is I've just started to research for webinars, because our kids, as if our kids are aging, so they start out these cute little babies with autism, and now they're getting to be teenagers and young adults, and we need help with modifying the environment for them, transition planning, and especially for IEP goal writing, for functional things that they can work on, not just handwriting, but then going beyond into the transition to young adulthood. Yeah, the misnomer at this point in the school systems is that we just do handwriting. So we are actually not handwriting teachers. We can modify or help rectify a grip that's inefficient. So if a child doesn't have that nice, pretty little tripod grasp, we can help to get that. However, when the kid's in second or third grade, then we look at efficiency. So if the grasp is efficient, if it's a quadrupod grasp, or if it's some kind of funky grasp, and the child can write efficiently, then we leave it alone. But if not, then we go to electronic accommodations. So OTs then can look at keyboarding and what kinds of keyboards would fit the student best. Also sensory processing, as the kids get older, it looks different. So we can look at sensory processing as it relates to function in the school. And then we also can look at behavior and transition planning. Other things we can do is work on seating. So if the child's having trouble sitting still in the classroom, we can modify that too. So not just handwriting, not just sensory, but we look at behavior, transitions, so anything that affects that student's school day. Right. So that's a really good question, because sensory processing disorder did not make it into the last DSM, which is the way that medical professionals classify disorders. So it did make it into the classification under autism, but sensory processing disorder is very confusing, and a lot of therapists treat it differently. So the general overview is that sensory processing is either a heightened response to stimuli in the environment or a too low, which is hypo, response. So if the student perceives every noise around them is equally as important, or every feeling, so I'm sitting here, I can feel the chair, my sweater, the noise around me, then it's hard to concentrate and focus in the classroom on what you're supposed to be paying attention to. So we would use something, maybe a suggestion could be a weighted lap pad, or some kind of fidget tool for the student to fidget with, or we can even look at special positioning in the classroom, so preferred seating. Then with sensory, transitions can be hard because any unexpected bump in the classroom or in line can set the child off into a fight or flight, which is when they really have a tantrum and freak out. So when they're in a fight or flight mode, they may fly off the handle for no apparent reason, maybe just being bumped by another student. So it's our job to be detectives and to figure out why the student is having that meltdown. So my CDs were created for my own kids my son in kindergarten didn't like the fire drills. So he was afraid to even step foot into the classroom because the fire alarm may sound. Of course, the school's not going to say, oh, let's just set off the fire alarm for your son, Bob. So we thought, where can we get a fire alarm? So we went into a recording studio and picked a whole plethora of sounds that you couldn't control, fireworks, thunder, sirens, and we put them on a CD, and I wrote nursery rhymes, changing the words to blender, blender, it's okay, or different little, Mary had a little lamb is, something to do with thunder. So they're kind of fun, and that way the student can control the volume of the sound. It's not a listening therapy, there's no headphones involved. It's just a fun way to control sounds that you normally couldn't control. So they're for sale at my website, thepocketot.com.
Make you laugh.
Welcome back. Now that she said she's going to make me laugh, which would be good because
better to laugh than cry.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I was saying just a few minutes. First of all, welcome to Nava Paskowitz-Asner.
Yes.
We love you.
I love
we
you
just
guys.
adore you.
Thank you.
And we've been talking about doing this show for over a year.
Yes.
You and I talking about autoimmunity, and I was saying that you're kind of the poster child to me, because a lot of times people don't see autoimmune issues, and we look at somebody like you, and I don't mean to make you uncomfortable, but we'd all like to be you. I mean, you're healthy, you're athletic,
I put up a good front.
Well, right, but no one to look at you would think, okay, this person is struggling with autoimmune issues.
Yes.
And I think that that's very common in the world. And I was saying before, I think it's very common among our autism moms.
Yes.
That I now have asking moms, meeting an autism mom, and then you hear the word autoimmune. Oh, I'm having a flare.
Yeah.
But I would never have guessed when I first met you. I remember you came into a room and I thought, wow, there's this you have this wonderful healing presence about you. You're like an earth mother. And vibrant is the word that I would use about you. Vibrant and caring and giving.
Thank you.
You would never guess. And then the first time I heard you say autoimmune, I went, oh, are you kidding me? Another person, and this is something, even right now, sitting here today,
it's
having
true. I
issues.
mean, I'm in the middle of a move. My house was just diagnosed with toxic black mold, and I'm in the middle of a Yiddish word, balagan. I have a big balagan going in my house. But because of all the stress going on, I'm having one of the worst flare-ups I've ever had in my whole life. I can barely move. And for me, it manifests in not just chronic pain. I have fibromyalgia. I've been diagnosed for about 15 years. But in the last, I would say the last 5 or 6 years, totally coinciding with Edwin's diagnosis, I have daily chronic migraines. I have, not to get too TMI, but I have chronic diarrhea and stomach problems, and a lot of my friends say I have like the kids' leaky gut syndrome. But for me, the biggest life-changing issue is my chronic pain. Yeah. And I've been to many doctors, and I just started getting physical therapy, which is the first thing that really helped me.
Really?
Because, like you say, I'm an athlete. I came from an athletic background. I taught surfing my whole life. I think that moving, for me personally, has helped me deal with my pain. When I during the winter, when it's cold, when I surf less, I feel like the Tin Man. I start to freeze up, literally. And when I'm moving, it's almost like my joints are lubricated.
Yeah.
I also have arthritis, and I have something else which is, she calls it, it's the second level of fibromyalgia, when your stress level becomes like general anxiety disorder and some of the other anxiety disorders. You can get this secondary form of fibromyalgia, because fibromyalgia is usually specific points in the body. And for me, it's like literally if you touch me on the top of my head to the bottom of my foot, everywhere you touch me feels like a bruise. Yeah. And it centers in my neck. I have this like frozen neck syndrome. But because of this, really intensified period of stress that we're going through, I'm having this flare-up that I haven't had I don't think I've ever had a flare-up like this, to be honest.
And you mentioned that these things kind of came to a head and worsened around the time that one of your sons was you were realizing, okay, this is autism, and not, I don't mean to sound disrespectful to people, but I see that people are now starting to put autism in different categories. And there are times when people talk about, well, we tend to use the words high functioning, but people around me have started using the walk in the park autism. Yeah. I don't think anybody has a walk in the park autism.
We have one of each. We have one of each.
But I think there needs to be an awareness of the fact that there are more intensive types of autism that are but as you said, you've got one son that it's a little bit easier, and one son that it's a little bit more intense.
Well, when Matt and I got married, Brady Bunch of autism, and so we have a blended family, and my beautiful son stepson Will, is more impacted than Edwin and Wolfie. Wolfie is so high functioning that he passed. He went to a tiny little private school, and he didn't have all the yearly IEPs. But with Edwin, who's more classically, autistic and was nonverbal until he was about 4, it coincided with my divorce. So it was definitely the time.
So what's the Yiddish word again for that?
Balagan.
Balagan.
Well, that's more like, I don't know, I can't think of it offhand. But so it really became something that affected my day-to-day, especially the migraines. I'm a naturalist. I have never taken a medication in my entire life. I had all my kids naturally. I don't take Imitrex or, the regular migraine medication. Not because I don't believe in it. My dad was a medical doctor. I know they're wonderful medications that really, truly help people's lives. Yeah. I am not somebody who is negative to something that really helps you. I personally have an OCD, one of my anxiety disorders. I'm a little bit Woody Allen. I'm Jewish, Woody Allen. But I don't like the idea of taking something and having my body either have a bad reaction or just, I don't like seeing the world through filtered lens. If I'm going to have a panic attack or a freak out, I welcome it. And I've learned natural remedies to help me get through those times, because fibromyalgia does, if you have anxiety disorder, it does intensify that.
Oh, sister, we are related somewhere. People who watch the show, I mean, I too have autoimmune. I was diagnosed first with, they thought I had lupus, but I did not qualify for lupus. Right. Thank goodness, right? But I was diagnosed with undifferentiated, I can't even say it, undifferentiated connective tissue disorder, which means that you have, it's a lot like autism. You have 2 from column A and 1 from column B, but you don't qualify. So it'd be like the PDD-NOS of autoimmune. And then I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, but panic disorder.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And I thought, I'll be honest, like things were happening in my body and I didn't have a reference point, so I thought I was dying, which then raised the panic. It all makes sense to me now, but when I was going through it, I just...
Well, fear exacerbates your pain.
Right.
It's a cycle. It's a cycle of fear intensifying the pain. I used to think, because one of my issues is reflux and GERD and everything, so I'd go to the ER maybe once a month saying, this time for sure I'm having a heart attack.
Right.
Last month I wasn't, and I have the world's strongest heart, but about every month I get these intense chest pains, and it could be anxiety. I'm having them all the time now. But I've had every heart test in the world and ultrasounds and everything, and thank God my heart is perfect. But
we are related.
Do you have that too?
We started the show and I said to Kelby, I needed him to hand me my purse, and I said, I'm either having a heart attack or I'm having reflux, so I just need my Tums, and I don't know which one it is, and that's how we start the day here. But anyway.
But I'll give you a wonderful book that I started called Panic Away, and it's all natural remedies. And
wonderful.
I started seeing her after I had Edwin, and she diagnosed me with postpartum anxiety disorder and general anxiety disorder and all this stuff. Yeah. And she said, I see a lot of women that are, they have postpartum psychosis, which thank goodness I did not have. Right. And they literally, their panic gets so intense that they can't even leave their house. They can't leave their room. And they usually are given pretty heavy medication for that. So,
I in the second year of therapy with Jem, I became agoraphobic.
Yeah.
And I couldn't drive at all, and I rarely could leave the house.
Yeah.
And when I did leave the house, I would have a panic attack. Now for me, because I'm like you, I don't want to take medicine, and I don't I'm going to have a reaction to it, and I've had allergic reactions to medicine that have ended me up in the ER, and I don't want to be in the ER.
And once that happens
forget it. And I don't want to feel, if I'm going to feel something, I want to feel it so that I know what's happening.
And it makes you feel more in control.
Exactly.
It sounds crazy, but it's like,
no,
okay,
I get it.
I know I'm going to, because I get weird every time I come in your elevator.
Oh.
Your elevator scares me.
We see,
but I want to see
like, these two. I'll tell you about that during the break, because I said I couldn't do this if we were going to have the elevator.
I know.
I said no. I moved to Los Angeles to not be around elevators. I'm a New York girl.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be around elevators.
Yeah.
And Dr. Grampiche is a psychologist, and she said we'll start the systematic desensitization now. And I just but I'm doing it. I'm riding the elevator.
That's the only way. I mean, the only way you can get to Hawaii is on an airplane.
There you go.
And so I'll get on that airplane. So only way.
But I want to take a break, and then when we come back, I want to talk a little bit about what does help you.
Okay.
And I'm willing to share too, because I had cognitive behavioral therapy, and that helped me with the panic.
A lot.
Helped me with the panic.
Hypnosis.
Okay, I haven't tried that.
I'd like to bring.
I think I'm too paranoid for the hypnosis.
Oh no, it's wonderful.
Okay. All right, so and we'll talk some specifics too about, because I know there are people watching who are going, well, okay, so you get
that
stiff,
sounds like me, but yeah,
we'll talk about some specifics. Stick with us. More with Nava Paskowitz-Asner. We're talking about autoimmune issues after these messages.
Hi everyone, welcome back. For the month of March, we're going to be making a rain stick. And what's really cool about this project is that the steps are pretty simple, so your kids are going to be able to practice a lot of their fine motor skills when making it. Another bonus is that once the rain stick is completed, you guys can use it for a bunch of different programs under cognition and executive functions, things that deals with, seeing versus hearing, or using it also for auditory memory. But we'll get to that later. First, we gotta make the rain stick. So, the materials you'll be needing are a paper towel roll, tape, paper, aluminum foil, rice, and any kind of materials you want to use to decorate your rain stick with. All right, let's get to it. So the first thing you want to do is get a piece of tin foil that's about double the length as your paper towel roll. So I got this, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll it up like so, and I'm going to wrap my paper towel roll with it. Okay, and don't worry if it's too messy, okay? This is just to give us a basic shape. Now once I've got this, I'm gonna make it a little bit tighter, and I'm gonna roll it and stick it inside of my paper towel roll. I wanna make sure that it goes all the way through the paper towel roll, and what this does, it acts like a buffer so the rice will go down slowly through the tube. And see how that's in nice and in there? Okay, now that I have that, I'm gonna take a piece of paper and cover one side. And I'm gonna take a piece of tape and secure it over the bottom. All right, now that I've got this on, I'm gonna take my rice and pour it in. All right, now that I got the rice in there, I'm gonna seal the other side. Now that this is constructed, don't forget to use your imagination to decorate this any way that you want. And here's my finished rain stick. Don't forget you can decorate yours however you see fit. I decided to use tape and pipe cleaners, but you could always paint it, add sparkles, just whatever you feel like doing. Now that this is done, let's take a listen to it. What does that sound like to you? I think it sounds like rain too. What does rain look like? Ah, that is what rain looks like. You can ask them a whole bunch of different questions using this after it's already been made. Well, until next time, craft on. Bye guys.
Can you see me? Can you see me flying by your side?
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're so thrilled because in the studio with us right now is Nava Paskowitz-Asner. She's a great friend of the show. We just love it when we have an opportunity to have her on. She's a regular on our show On the Spectrum with Matt Asner, her fairly new hubby. And that's been a wonderful thing to get to watch the two of you blossom and have your families join together. We call you guys the Brady Bunch of autism because 6 kids, 3 on the spectrum. An amazing, amazing thing. And we love to be around you guys because you're both fun and you're funny and you're grounded and you're wonderful. But from the beginning, before I even had gotten a chance to meet you, when I saw Matt was a regular on the show, and I saw a shift in him, and I said, "What's up with you?"
Well, what's up with you? We brought each other back to life, you know.
And that's really, and you guys are ridiculously happy together. You get diabetes when you're in the room with them.
We're best friends.
Possible
we're
way.
best friends, and so, you know, we have disagreements and fights, and we're both very passionate Jewish.
Well, I was going to say, there's definitely, passion is there, so I would expect it not always be smooth.
No,
but clearly there is love.
I more than love him.
Yeah.
I more than love him.
And then, you know what? You exude that when the two of you are together. So it's fun to be around them. They're a really wonderful couple. And I haven't met your daughter.
Oh, I want to have. Oh, she would be a great person to come on because she is truly the world's most loving sibling.
I would love to meet her.
She is.
But I
she's
think
like
I've met
the
everybody
second
else.
mommy.
I think she's the only one that I haven't met. And the family is an amazing, and your extended family is amazing.
Yes.
You come from a family that it's in and of itself is its own story.
Yes.
That's
putting it mildly.
Right, but a great story, a great, wonderful American, cultural story.
Yes.
And surfing royalty.
We were very unconventional. Yeah, we were. My dad was a conventional Stanford educated doctor. But we were just talking on the break. He didn't believe that fibromyalgia was a true condition. He came from the old school theory that it's all in your head, or it's it's nerves. They used to call me, oh, my nerves, in the
Right.
the
The
1800s, the
yes,
vapors,
right?
So, growing up, when I would complain, because I'm thinking now that I've had this since I was a kid. I mean, I had migraines since I was 9. So it's very frustrating. We were talking about the fact that with this condition, you can go from doctor to doctor to doctor and be misdiagnosed and this, and it's very frustrating. And especially when you want to do something a little more natural and holistic, and
Exactly.
and they just, the first thing is, okay, Prozac, this, and
Exactly.
that.
Well, and when I first, because I had said earlier that I think I've had this my whole life too,
Yeah,
but I
definitely.
managed it. I
Yeah.
managed it, or it managed me, or my life managed it, or my life wasn't as complicated, so I could manage it.
Right.
And it didn't hold me back. I was able to do everything that I needed to do, but maybe it took a little bit more effort than it took everybody
Right.
else, but I could do it. And then when I had a child on the autism
Yes.
spectrum, suddenly I couldn't manage it anymore.
Yeah.
And I would go to doctor after doctor and say, something is not right. I'm telling you, I don't feel right. And they would say, well, tell me a little bit about your symptoms. And then they would say, well, what is the stress in your life? And,
Yeah.
I would say, well, I just had a child diagnosed with autism. And then
The prescription comes out.
for, Valium.
Oh, for sure.
For what,
Antidepressant.
numb.
Yeah.
And I would say, you don't understand. I have to get this kid to therapy. I can't just numb this away.
And I think that for me personally, because I live with it every day, and I meet so many moms, I'm now, we go through our life, and we figure our different paths, and I finally feel after 40 years that I'm exactly on the path that I should be. And because of meeting all these people at my workshops, I run these support workshops for moms and dads
Yes.
and siblings of special needs families. And what we're finding is so many of the parents feel like they're being selfish. I can't take care of me because my little guy was just diagnosed, and the most important thing is getting him to all these, especially the new diagnosis parents. So I've realized, until I can get the parents understanding that by healing themselves, by taking care of themselves, giving them that time, they're giving themselves a stronger, more powerful advocate for their child. And they
Yes.
can't do it. If I have a migraine, if I'm vomiting all day, if I'm in bed, I can't take care of my kid. I
No.
have to be able to function. And for me, like we talked about, how do we function in a holistic, natural way? Well, I've found that through, obviously, surfing is my number one thing. I've met a wonderful friend of mine, John Sahakian, and he has helped so many of our autistic and special needs parents learn a new method of relaxation. He teaches a course called Complete Breath and Complete Breath. Oh my God, he's going to kill me. But in a nutshell, it's teaching us a new way of relaxing, de-stressing. He has come into our lives and some of my parents' lives exactly when we need tools, and I didn't have the tools. I'm a very high stressed, high nervous person. It's very hard for me to meditate and breathe and relax. And through his teaching of meditation and hypnotherapy and mindfulness, I have partnered with him, and we've created these workshops for parents. And our first one is going to be delayed a little because of my move and everything, but I'm really excited to be able to help these parents and give them tools. I'm also studying to be a life coach because I feel that I've been through a lot in my life, an unusual amount, and even before the autism came into my life. And nothing makes me happier and makes me feel more healed than to help a parent with new diagnosis. So I felt like I can do that in my workshops, but I feel like I'm giving myself more tools by studying this. And so I'm in the process of being certified, and I'm very proud of that.
And how can people find out more information about the workshops that you're doing with John Sahaki?
I'm going to put that out. We're trying to figure out, God willing, I'm going to have this new compound and would like to do our workshops right within my home. And eventually we're going to create a center. You know, I spoke to you a little bit about pairing with Ed and having the Ed Asner Enrichment Center for special needs families, not just for autistic families.
Right.
All families are welcome. And in the dream scenario, we're going to have a mindfulness center. We're going to have, I'd like to work with the Miracle Project, which I'm still on the board for the Miracle Project, and have an area for the children to be able to do not just regular therapies. I don't want a regular therapeutic environment. I want there to be an element of theater and arts and all the different components, and a pool. For me, the only thing that's helped my pain is water therapy.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk about that a little bit, but I do want to say one of the things that I think all of us are learning, and I hope that the autism community is learning, and that the people who work with the autism community are learning, is that we need everybody in our community, the parents and the individuals who are on the autism spectrum, we need to be looked at as whole individuals.
Yes.
That if it just becomes about autism ever, we are
100%.
missing the boat.
Yes.
We're whole individuals. And, you know, I'm a huge proponent of ABA therapy. I think that ABA therapy is amazing. I refer to it as the autism miracle in my living room. But one of the things that I've learned 10 years in is that if you don't have good quality ABA therapy that allows for other things and interests to come in, and the arts in particular, what you're going to have is somebody who has so much anxiety because you've made them aware. You've taken away the disabling aspects of autism to make them aware of the world, and you've given them no context in which to process it, which for a lot of people has some element of either something physical or the arts or both, right?
Yes.
I mean, people who are healthy and at the top of their game are either, and that are not, you know, constantly losing it, are people who express themselves in a way that is either, you know, physically or artistically. And if we don't give that to our kids, it's a disservice, a great disservice. And we will deal with anxiety endlessly. And we know that then the anxiety becomes
behaviors.
And it also becomes physical illness. There's a report out today that we're going to cover in the news about the fact that there's a new study out showing that individuals who are on the autism spectrum have a life expectancy that is significantly lower. That if they have any kind of developmental delay as well, that their life expectancy is around 40. And that for even individuals, including high-functioning individuals, the life expectancy is closer to 54.
Oh my gosh.
Isn't that devastating to hear
No,
as a mom?
I mean, I don't even want to, I can't even.
But certainly part of it is stress-related. So we have an obligation to figure this out for ourselves and to figure it out for our kids and be the role models for it. So we said we were going to talk about, I'm not even going to take a break. We said we were going to talk about what you do that works. You said water, being in the water, physical therapy.
I just started physical therapy myself, but for me, because I come from the ocean and if I can't get into the ocean, I end up, when I'm in a flare-up like I am right now, I end up taking 3 baths a day. And sometimes more.
You're a water baby.
Yes, absolutely.
Are your kids water babies too?
100%. They all could swim when they were like 2 or 3. Eddie could swim when he was 2, like Michael Phelps across the.
Awesome.
But again, you know, I'm now in the last 6 months starting this mindfulness and the hypnotherapy and the new even low impact yoga, because even though I'm a surfer, I've always been a very inflexible person, and I think part of it I didn't really feel it affected my surfing, because when you're doing it, you're so involved in the act and you're kind of on another wavelength. But then I would wonder, why am I in so much pain after I surf for days sometimes? Now learning new avenues and new really low impact, and there is specific yoga techniques for fibromyalgia patients.
That's interesting.
Sufferers, I shouldn't say patients. We're not patients.
When I was in graduate school, we did yoga every day, and I remember there was one yoga teacher that it was so great, and I felt great, and then there was another yoga teacher that was just a little bit more athletic, and every day I would end crying.
Yeah.
I'd be in an asana crying, tears coming down because it hurt so bad.
And the thing is, when you're in a group, you push yourself. You don't want to look like the person who can't do it. And I've been in so many situations where I, because I was an athlete, I push myself and I say, I can do this, I know. And I surfed really aggressively last month. And it took me 2 weeks to not, I literally could barely move. I was like so stiff that I couldn't really move my neck. And before, that would never happen to me.
Wow. And now you're in a situation where you've discovered that you have black mold in your house, which is affecting everyone.
Everything.
Health-wise, it's the worst thing that could be happening.
I was saying to you earlier, I almost didn't come today because I've just been feeling like I have the flu.
Yeah.
And I've been feeling bad. And in this kind of flare-up kind of mode for about 3 months of nonstop flu-like symptoms. My eyes are constantly watering. I have chronic sore throats. I keep going back to the doctor and saying, are you sure I don't have strep throat?
Yeah.
Because it's just really intensifying in my throat and my eyes, and my migraines are constant.
Yeah.
Constant.
So you've made the tough decision that you've got to move.
Yeah, we're moving.
But that creates new stress, and I think this happens to a lot of people. It's like there's one stressor, but the solution to it is another stressor, and you're having to push through all of that while feeling like
really bad.
I was going to
really
use an inappropriate word.
Yeah, and and the thing is, most fibromyalgia patients have an element of insomnia because you move this way, that hurts. You move that way. Matt's jealous of my heating pad because that's become my boyfriend. But you don't get a really good night's sleep, and so for me, if Eddie is going to wake me up at 4 a.m. and I've slept 2 hours, you see it. I haven't been on an audition for a commercial or a job in 6 months because they can't cover the bags under my eyes.
I don't believe that.
That's true.
You still look beautiful.
No.
But so you don't use the typical medication for migraines. How
no.
are you managing the migraines?
For me personally, magnesium has become everything to me. I use Calms, which is great for your nervous system. Mm-hmm. The powdered Calm.
Right.
And I take a lot of magnesium every day. I take a lot of supplements. I just started using Juice Plus, which all of us are taking now. And I feel better already. I've only been on Juice Plus for a week, and I feel a little more energy, which we all, to me, the hardest, the missing piece, so to speak, is energy.
Yeah.
Because I'm so tired all the time.
And well, you're singing my song again,
Yeah.
but I look at you and you seem vibrant to me, and
But I'm also, I'm a hyper. When I was a kid, I was diagnosed with ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm a little bit on the spectrum myself. So I have this kind of hyper element. But then because of the adrenal fatigue and some of the other stuff, I go, and then I just, and I literally feel like somebody has unplugged me.
Exactly.
Chronic diarrhea, back to the
it's,
TMI.
It's the good conversation.
Right.
It's what the conversation.
I just had
everybody
a colonoscopy, I'm proud to say, and
good for
everything's
you.
perfect.
Yeah.
And but I think everybody should get checked out.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that you have to take the medications.
Right.
He gives me a list of medications now I should take.
Right.
And I'm not going to take any of them.
Right.
We do gluten free and we some other stuff that helps our stomachs, but You know.
I just want to take you with me to when I go to my doctor and he goes, well, I'm prescribing these 15 medicines that are the equivalent of chemotherapy.
Yes.
But one in particular that they wanted to give me that was going to make my hair fall out, which I didn't take it not because of that, because I'd love it if my hair fell out, honestly. I'd be just as good without my hair. But there were other things that, can cause you to lose your eyesight that I said, I don't think I want to do that. And ultimately, that can kill you.
The fibromyalgia, what is the one that's the most famous fibromyalgia medication? Cymbalta, I think it is.
I don't know.
But, I mean, the side effects for me are just, no.
No.
No thanks.
But my doctor goes, then why did you come? If you're not going to take all these things, why did you come?
And he's not the right doctor.
Well, and then I find myself asking, yes, you're right. Why did I come? Why am I paying you a whole lot of money for this? You have to
start some of these healing things. And you're going to be the first person who comes to the workshop.
Okay. All right. Because heaven knows I need it.
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to take a short break and then we're going to come back. Actually, we're going to go to the A word, but we are going to come back with Nava for one more thing. And then it'll be time for Dr. Linda Copeland. So stick with us.
Hello. Say hi. What is it? What's that? Giraffe. He's getting really good at it. How about that guy? Who's this guy?
We have this one program called NVI, which is non-vocal imitation. So he basically has to imitate whatever we do. So we were working on object manipulation, and then Tuesday I tried doing more gross motor things like clapping hands or standing or jumping, and he was able to imitate all of those.
Ready? Do this. Yay! Very good. Okay, here you go. Who's hiding now? Me? Do this. Good job. Okay, here you go. Okay, let's do another one. Okay, ready? Do this. Yay! All right. Here you go, Rockstar. Oh, that's so cool. All right, you ready? Do this. Good job. Very good.
So that was actually a fine motor action with a touch nose.
Oh, yum. How did that happen?
You want more? You want more of this?
More? Okay. Good asking. We'll do a couple more actions, okay? Do this. Good job. Do this. Good job. Do this. Good try. See here. Can you try? Do this. There you go. All right. Here you go.
He's been doing a lot more on his own, even just when I attempt him by just holding the object, not necessarily asking him to imitate more. Cat, that's right. He does do it on his own now, which is really cool.
Good asking, buddy. Ouch. Line it up. That one's up. Oh, there you go. See? How many up do you want to go?
Touch the block. God, what is it? Block. Good job.
Sorry, I'm just curious. This is cool.
Okay. I'm interested too. Touch shoes. Where's the shoes? That's a good try. Okay. Right. Let's see. Can you touch crab? Where's the crab? Can you touch it with your finger though? Thank you. Did you see that? What is it? Crab. See, crab. That was so funny. I didn't specify, huh? Touch block. Good job. What is it? What is this? Block. This is his receptive labels, so what I just did basically. And our supervisor had written down things that's in his environment that he might not know or that he might know the labels to, or if he's just seen it or heard the label for it, not necessarily know how to say it per se. And I just went through block, guitar, bear, plain, cat with him, and so he actually knows all of them. So I'm actually going to go through his environment just to see other things like shoes. He actually knew almost everything on here except fork, I think. Yeah. So that's actually really impressive. You amaze me every day, kiddo.
We're taking a walk. We just finished dinner, getting ready to go to bed. But part of our after dinner tradition suddenly has been to take a walk. Make sure. Say, come on, Mama. Come on, Mama. Right, Jack? And then we say, stop. Go. Stop. Go. So we're practicing our stops and goes. Stop. Good stopping. Go. Stop. Good stopping, Jack. Stop. Good stopping. Good job, love. Look at me. Say bye-bye.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're here with Nava Paskowitz-Asner. We've been talking about autoimmune disorders. We're almost out of time with talking with her, but I wanted to keep her just a little bit longer. I almost wish that people could have listened in during the break as the two of us were talking about how old it feels between the pain and the tiredness. I know, I look at you and I think, oh, she's so young and so vibrant, and I'm 53 years old, but we were both saying that sometimes we feel like we're in our 70s and 80s.
Oh yeah, right now, I mean, I have become the Tin Man. I have become the Tin Man. And I force myself, I actually grit my teeth sometimes to swing my legs out of my car because my hips are one of my hot spots. And you know, my physical therapist keeps telling me the lubrication is movement. And so I force myself to continue moving because I know that if I stop moving, I'm going to turn into the Tin Man, and it's a scary feeling. I used to be an athlete, and it makes me really depressed and sad.
I remember the first time you used that expression, the Tin Man. I remember exactly where we were standing because I went, "Oh, that's so the thing." When I was first going through the process of being diagnosed, one of the things that they were looking at me for was scleroderma because I do have some of the, I mean, I've got skin issues that are in the category of scleroderma, but thank goodness I don't have scleroderma because people with scleroderma literally turn into statues. Your skin, you know, freezes up to the point where you can't move anymore.
Right.
And I there are times when I feel that way, that I can't.
Well, that's why it's so hard to diagnose this thing. They thought I also had lupus because even though I'm dark skinned, I started to get light sensitive out of the blue.
Yes, I can't be in the sun without a ton of sunscreen ever.
Well, I just wear a hat, but I mean, later it was connected, and I don't know if you knew this, but chlorophyll is one of the best things in the world for a bad stomach. But chlorophyll, like the chlorophyll in trees that attracts the light and attracts photosynthesis, when you take chlorophyll in large doses, as you have to with stomach issues, it makes you so light sensitive. So I had this experience going to Hawaii where I literally got hives all over my body. And it was once I stopped taking the chlorophyll, I could be out in the sun again. And I had to really decide whether or not, am I going to give up the sun, which I can't. I go in the water a lot. Or make my stomach feel better because it really helps a bad stomach.
Interesting. Well, I have to do, I usually, if you see me at walks and things, like we're all going to be at the walk on the 2nd of April. I'm usually the person out in the heat in long sleeves.
It's supposed to be a very hot walk, I heard.
Okay.
And I'm running the Grand Club again. I'm chairing the.
Wonderful. Well, and and so I've gotten to the point where I've considered putting gloves on because I don't like to be doused completely in sunscreen, but I put it on where I have to put it on. But if I miss an hour, usually there's one person at the booth when we're at something like that that's their job every hour on the hour to tell me to reapply the sunscreen, or I have like a low-grade flu for at least 4 days.
You have to just get a really cute hat.
But the hat isn't enough.
No, but I mean like a visor that goes under your.
But then there's my hands.
Yeah.
And, it isn't enough.
Zinc. It has to have zinc in it. Zinc oxide.
Okay.
It's worthless. Baby, the 50, all of that worthless unless it has high levels of zinc oxide.
I use the Honest brand, so there's not a lot of other stuff in it. It's the best thing.
I'll tell you one after the.
Okay. All right.
I can give that.
We don't want to give them a plug. I just gave Honest
I can't remember
a plug.
the name of it.
All right.
My mind just went blank.
Okay, so again, people, you're going to let us know when you're starting the workshops.
Absolutely.
I want to go.
Yes. And it's all going to be under the, from now on, my center is the Ed Asner Enrichment Center for Special Needs Families.
Which is wonderful.
I still call my workshops the Balanced Family Workshops because that's what, for me, starting the conferences years ago in the Friendship Circle, to me, it was the goal to support the families. You talked about how special needs kids are not just a separate unit. We're all tied together.
It's a whole family, a whole kid, a whole
It's
family.
about healing the family. And I've said that a million times, but I'll say it again. That's
And our topic this entire week is we're talking about working with what you have. And I think what's been important to me with autoimmune stuff is to kind of get over the hump of, well, this is what it is. But if I take these 12 steps, I manage it. And if I don't, everything goes kapooey.
And I just want to add one last thing.
Yeah.
This is the month of joy. In the Hebrew month of Adar, it's the month of joy. And it's so easy when you're suffering to give in to the suffering and to allow that blanket and the little black cloud to follow you around. And it's finding the joy in your life. And you have to do something for yourself. You have to find something that makes you happy every single day. And it can't be bottles of wine.
Right.
My friend John told me that your body instinctively wants to feel good. But so many of us, including myself, we give our bodies something that makes us feel good temporarily, and it's really not helping us in the long run. Wine, not for myself, but so many others, drugs, and
I just like
negative.
To eat.
Yeah, well, that's a drug. That's
Absolutely.
a drug. For me, I know what gluten does to me. I know what's not. But when I am feeling that feeling, I could eat a whole loaf of rye bread. Yeah. And that's my drug. But it's finding something that makes your body feel good. Because when your body feels good, especially for a chronic pain sufferer, it's like the most wonderful feeling in the world.
Absolutely. I'm thinking about Matt. Matt came on the show and he told us the Korean phrase of happy : happy life. And I think that's true, but that's a hard thing.
Yeah.
When autoimmune, alone, not even talking about everything else, happy : as you've shared, that's a hard
and
thing
most
to
people
get
have
to.
the opposite of what I have.
Yes.
Which is even worse, I think.
Yeah, I think so, because that comes with more pain.
Yeah.
But either end of it.
No, I have pain all the time in my stomach.
Really?
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people go back and forth between the two.
Yes, absolutely.
But
End on that note.
Ending on that note. But anyway, when you're ready to do the workshops, you'll come back. You'll bring John Zahaki in with you.
Definitely.
And we'll
I
talk
would
about
love Tim to come on.
Okay. Fabulous. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
I love
and
you.
I love you too. And
We're definitely sisters together, and I'll help you and you help me.
And you let me know when you're moving. I'm not the greatest lifter, but I can.
No, I am. I'm going to rally the troops because I need help. I need help
I can
out
bring
there.
The gluten-free
I need help.
snacks. I'll be in charge of that.
Thank you.
Anyway, we're going to take a break now, and then when we come back, it's time for Dr. Copeland, who is a developmental pediatrician and a board-certified behavior analyst, and she's answering your questions, so stick with us.
What would you do if your child was hurting?
If your family's future was uncertain.
If help seemed out of reach.
Have you been given no hope?
Taka means I am not alone in this.
This is the reality for families affected by autism. And today, the number of children with autism is growing more rapidly than ever. Taka unites these families and ensures that they do not have to fight this battle alone.
Our oldest son, Jared, who has autism, when we first took him to the doctor to get the diagnosis, you know, it's so sad because they offer you nothing. There's no help, there's no hope.
One of the things that you learn with autism is being very grateful for even the small milestones. You know, when you first get the diagnosis, you go through all the range of emotions. You know, this can't be happening. Why is this happening? You have to get to a point where it's the emotion that has to be leading is, what can I do? The first thing that struck me was walking to a room and seeing, oh my gosh, we're not alone. And there is this very strong community that's already set. And something I still today associate with Taka the most is hope. To me, that's what Taka means. Taka means hope.
It's like you've got all these dreams and goals of what your son's going to do, and you get your diagnosis and you're sent home. And that's it. There's no plan of action. There's no, here's autism, here's what we're going to do to make your life better and help him. It's strictly go home and try to process it and go on the internet. It was devastating, and you just, you know, you go through this 3 week of depression and then you snap out of it. You have to. And then you start making phone calls and trying to figure out what is autism and what are we going to do. And then we found Taka, and it was life-changing.
Autism, there really is no definitive answer. It is trying to find the resources that are out there that can assist you to help your child so that, you know, you just don't feel so helpless at those particular moments.
There was direction and there was hope and there was a little ray of sunshine that he's going to be okay and we're going to be okay. I always look back and think we would never be where we are. Carson wouldn't be where he is at without Taka.
So 13 years ago, my son was diagnosed with autism, and that put our whole family into a tailspin. There were so many different ideas and things that were not proven. Nobody knew what guidance to give us. We had no direction. And then we found Taka. They helped give us a path to follow, help give our son a better future and make him healthy and put him back onto the road of recovery. When your son's first diagnosed, the first thing you hope for is, gosh, I just want my son to speak. I just want to be able to communicate with him in some way. Then you want a little more. You want him to go to a regular school. Then you want him to potentially have a real life and go to college. So you're always hoping for the future of your child. My son is a happy, healthy, vibrant young boy that's going to turn 15 really soon. And we couldn't be more pleased, and without Taka, I don't think we'd be in the place that we are today. We believe the future is not defined for many affected by autism. There is hope and direction for these kids and their families. Taka is dedicated to providing community, support, education, and hope to families affected by autism.
At Taka?
At Taka.
At Taka.
We are families with autism helping.
Helping.
Helping families.
Helping families with autism.
Hi, my name is Matt. I am 19 years old, and I was diagnosed with autism when I was 6 years old. Autism is one of the fastest growing developmental disabilities in the United States, but I am living proof that with the right treatment, hope is possible. My future is not limited. Today, I am attending Fullerton Community College, and I run for the cross-country team for fun with my friends. It makes me feel proud when I think about my progress. Chances are you know someone affected by autism. Show them they are not alone and help others get on the road to recovery. Contribute to Talk About Curing Autism today.
It's every parent's desire for their child to have a great start in life. Yet there is a condition affecting more children's lives than pediatric cancer, diabetes, and AIDS combined. Autism strikes 1 in every 150 children.
Today, 1 in 110 kids in the U.S. will be diagnosed with autism. That is a huge jump from 30 years ago when it was 1 in 30,000.
Startling new report finds the number of children with autism is skyrocketing. The Centers for Disease Control estimates 1 in 68 children has a form of autism. Now that's a 30% increase in just 2 years.
Well, a lot of the children and all the accomplishments over the last 20 years, I'm thrilled.
I think what kept me was the feeling that, you know, I would have a parent come to my office late at night at UCLA and just fall apart. And this is a long time ago, and there were much less back then in terms of services and knowledge and so on. And I would just sit with the family and the parents and walk them through and try to take away some of their fears, you know. And at that point I realized, I think the thing that's actually most important to me is that process. I mean, thank God that I've been very, very lucky and blessed to have so many incredible clinicians join me along the way and just develop CARD in such an amazing, magnificent way. That I could, you know, for me, it was more really about how can I help the families? What can I do for the moms, the dads, you know? It is just, and I feel like, you know, there's no way I would ever really know because I haven't had my own child go through this, but I've experienced it with people a lot of times.
Hi, this is Megan. I'm in first grade all by myself. My teachers are so fabulous. I like to read books. I like to go to my friends' birthday parties. I like to invite my friends to my birthday parties. I once had a sleepover with a friend. I like to have play dates with my friend. I'm the best reader in my class. I like to go to the library. I like to read different series of books. And here's how I learned to do all these things. By my card friends and Dr. Grandpichet. Thank you, card friends and Dr. Grandpichet.
Nick was diagnosed with autism in 1994 at the age of 4. He received 5 years of therapy from CARD that eventually faded out. Nick recovered from autism in 2001.
The song I'm about to perform is by the Red Hot Chili Peppers. CARD helped many patients, myself, to recover to this level now.
Cheryl and Mike's son, Jack Riley, was diagnosed with autism in 2010 at age 2. He's been receiving therapy from CARD for a year and a half. Today, Cheryl, Mike, and Nick meet for the first time.
I'm curious as to what you remember.
I certainly remember pretty long sessions, and I'd be frustrated if I would make mistakes. I mean, I remember one time I had to count a row of 6 blocks, kept messing up. That was really difficult.
No.
I need it. I need it.
At what point do you recall hearing the word autism?
I was able to figure out what I was going through without anybody having to tell me.
Our concern is if it's a big secret to hide. I don't know what we can say.
No one ever told you, you just discerned
But the
it?
reason I'm comfortable talking about this is because I felt it. In therapy, I certainly began questioning why people reacted as they did based on what I said and did. Particularly because of difficulties I was facing in school, it got to a point where I wanted to understand why it was. I entered while still going through therapy and still showing significant signs of the mental condition. Even after I'd improved to a significant extent, there were those who still gave me a hard time for it.
Did it hurt your feelings when you were in school, the way that kids...
Oh, absolutely, because it was bullying, it was harassment.
That scares us.
They called me names. I was basically, when it came to sports and PE, I was usually the last kid chosen.
Did teachers intervene?
Fortunately, not really. I mean, it was just so hard for me to talk about it because of how ashamed I felt. Certainly the first few years of elementary school, I don't think I really had the most supportive teachers. I mean, I remember my mom told me how my first grade teacher once said that she thought I had no chance of getting anywhere. And going away to college and out of state and being the only person from my old school district has made a difference. It's just really improved my social life tremendously because I got to be me, because with nobody knowing about my past, I wasn't faced with these misconceptions and prejudgments.
Do you tell people, new people that you meet?
No, that's not the first thing I will ever
No, I would
tell
hope it's not the
and
first
you
thing.
know what? In most cases, I never do, because while it's a part of my past, it doesn't define who I am. I mean, just thinking back to the very beginning, pretty much each episode, autism, what, not who.
I want to tell you right now, though, I'm so impressed with you.
Likewise.
I want you to know that.
Likewise. I mean, your son really inspires me just as much because I'll tell you anytime.
I adore him, but I'd be lying if I said it wasn't challenging.
I mean,
it's cost me the stuff that like career things, goals. I don't care about those anymore. I work at night. I'm tending bar. Not that I'm too good for that. I'm just saying that's what I do. I want him to have a chance.
Right.
And you inspire me now.
Thank you. The feeling goes both ways. The feeling's mutual.
Before you leave today, we would like you to meet Jack.
I would love to.
This is Nick. Hi, Nick.
Hey, Jack Riley.
All right, should we try this? I'm gonna try to take a picture of all of you. 1, 2, and 3.
Jack Riley, you rock.
Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod, and we're at the ABCs and XYZs of Special Needs Conference. And this year, for the first time, they've got something really remarkable. It's the Entrepreneurial Boutique. These are all items that have been made and are being sold by individuals who have special needs. So we're going to do a little shopping and talk to some of these fabulous entrepreneurs. Come on.
My name is Molly Rarick, and I'm founder of Breed's Gift. We're a nonprofit that serves teens and adults with special needs, like Chase here. We were founded in 2013 and serve people in the Conejo Valley, Santa Barbara, and LA.
Our main objective is to give our participants the skills they need to gain a more independent life.
My name is Shelley Cox, and Lisa Zalagi and I are founders of Creative Steps and Create Micro Business Enterprises. And the items that we're selling here today are all made by the clients who have passions about what they want to make, and then they get the profits from what they make after we've paid all of the other expenses.
We are here today because my goal is to be independent, and also I would like to share all my artwork, and I would like to sell.
Thinking about at his young age being a businessman, it's amazing. I cannot be more proud.
Welcome back to Autism Live. Ooh, that was just very loud in my ear there. We have Dr. Linda Copeland with us, and she is, we call her the unicorn. She is both a developmental pediatrician and a board-certified behavior analyst. And right as we have gone live, something has happened with our sound, so I'm hoping that I'm still going to be able to hear you, Dr. Copeland.
Okay, I hope so too.
Oh, yes, I hear you very well.
Yes, good.
Okay. All right. So we thank you so much for being with us today. We're thrilled. And I had mentioned at the start of the show that we're not going to be doing live shows in April and May, but what we'll do is we will record some shows with Dr. Copeland so that you'll still be able to see her on Thursdays in April and May, because we don't want to lose this valuable time with her. As I said, you know, people call you the unicorn, and our first question, they said, for the unicorn, what is norovirus? The doctor said this is what my son has. What on earth? It sounds horrible.
Well, it certainly can be, but it's the routine garden variety stomach bug, talking about the virus that causes stomach flu. So it's a very contagious virus. It can affect anyone, and basically it causes your stomach and your intestines to get inflamed and upset. So as we think of stomach flu, you know, the nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, that's what it causes. And there's been a particularly bad a type of norovirus going through the Sacramento community where I live now.
I think it's here too, so I have a feeling it might be everywhere. And
yeah. And you can get it from an infected person. Obviously, you want to use universal precautions around any bodily fluids, but you could also get it from contaminated food or water, or even if the virus is, you know, on the countertops or whatnot, you could use some bleach spray or whatnot to try and decrease exposure to the virus. But the biggest thing, of course, with stomach flu is to stay well hydrated.
Okay.
And I am a big fan of Pedialyte for that. People can go several days, even children can go several days without food, but we absolutely have to have those fluids so we don't get dehydrated.
I'm so glad to hear you say that, because, you know, knock on, I'd have to find some wood somewhere. I've not had it yet, but both my husband and my son had whatever the bug was recently. And we always keep the Pedialyte, that's the one that doesn't have any artificial colors or flavors in it, which I really like to have, you know, around for an emergency. We just keep like 2 bottles of it under one of the sinks in the bathroom so that it's there. And but I said, when I took him to the pediatrician afterwards to just see that he was okay, I said, you know, all he's had is Pedialyte. And he said, you know, he's almost 13 years old. You're giving him Pedialyte? And said that I said, well, but it hydrates. It even says on the bottle, it hydrates better than sports drinks and better than water. And when you've lost stuff, I think, you know, you got to put stuff back in, right?
Right, absolutely.
Okay, so I love it.
My husband and I keep emergency Pedialyte for ourselves, and my husband's grown to like it as a drink.
That's not good. I can see I'm at the bar ordering a Scotch and Pedialyte. That won't go over well. Okay, but so is that the main thing then to do? Is there anything else that we can do when we have the stomach flu?
Supportive care. It's small sips of liquid, taking a sip right after you've thrown up, because that's the best time to keep it down, and just small sips. If you chug it, a large volume is likely to come up again, and then you have to keep up with the fluid loss with the diarrhea and rest. I have to confess, I hadn't gotten sick in a long time, but about 6 weeks ago I got the stomach bug, and I had to stay in bed 3 days.
3 days. Okay, gosh, not fun, not a good time. But is this the thing that they end up having on cruise ships when a cruise ship?
Yes, a lot of times it's various stomach flu bugs. Yes, various viruses.
And then once you've had this, does that make you okay? Are you still susceptible?
That we know, because the viruses mutate.
Okay.
They learn to adapt. Plus, there's a variety of them that can cause. But noro is a big one.
Okay. Great. Well, moving on to the next question. Dr. Copeland, what's the best way to treat eczema? My daughter's pediatrician prescribed a steroid, and I'm not sure whether to use it. The pharmacy said I can only use it for 5 days. Then what?
Okay, that's a huge question, and I'm not sure if the writer means a steroid by mouth or a topical skin cream or skin ointment. And really, it's important not to be afraid of steroid creams and ointments. That's a big part of treating eczema. So what eczema is, there's different types of eczema. It's also called atopic dermatitis, where atopy refers to, it can be allergy based. But eczema is a recurring dry, red, itchy skin that gets very inflamed. And it's really key to control the dryness and the itching. Dermatologists often call it eczema the itch that rashes. So if the child itches enough, even if there wasn't a rash there, they're going to create a rash. So steroid creams, prescribed carefully by the doctor and used according to directions, are really important. The American Academy of Pediatrics says they're probably underused, and they can actually really control the inflammation. Now, it's possible that with a more severe form of eczema, if it's really generalized redness and abrasions and irritation, inflammation on major areas of the skin of the body all over, that the pediatrician might have given an oral dose of steroids. And when you take steroids by mouth, we don't want to do prolonged use. So it's typical to give a 5-day course. And that's what we call an oral steroid burst. If you go longer than that, steroids can suppress the immune system, but short term, they're great for taking away inflammation. So it's important to follow the doctor's instructions to get the acute redness and inflammation treated and healing. And then the trick becomes when the mom asks what else. That's a very important question, because you want to try to prevent those flare-ups. And there is a website. It's nationaleczema.org, all lowercase, one word. And it goes over, some of the standards. You want to take tepid baths, not excessively hot, because that'll irritate the skin. And you want to pat dry, not rub dry. You want to avoid irritating soaps, lotions, anything with perfumes or dyes, stay away from, that can trigger the eczema. So you want hypoallergenic products like Dove soap, and you don't want to leave the soap on too long. You want to rinse well, pat dry, and then you really need to moisturize the skin with some good hypoallergenic moisturizer, maybe something like Aveeno, and even Vaseline can be helpful for moisturizing. And then another important point with eczema is we all have bacteria in our skin, but when the skin becomes dry and red and raw, more bacteria grows and it becomes a vicious cycle, triggering the eczema. So it may be important to reduce bacteria on the skin. And if there's just isolated patches of red eczema, you could do that with a prescription antibacterial ointment. It's called mupirocin, and the trade name is Bactroban. The doctor can prescribe, and you can just put that on twice a day to the patches. And anytime it starts to flare, you can immediately start that, as well as with some topical steroids. But for more severe generalized eczema, to decrease the bacteria, dermatologists will sometimes recommend a bleach bath. You have to do it carefully. It's like 1/4 cup of bleach to half a tub full of lukewarm water. You got to fill the tub up a good halfway full, and be careful not to get that bleach water in the eyes. But soaking 10 minutes in that bleach bath and then rinsing off thoroughly and patting dry, that decreases bacteria in the skin too. So moisturize, treat the itch if need be. Sometimes the child has to take Benadryl for anti-itching, like an antihistamine. Those are the mainstays. About 1/3 of eczema could be due to food allergies, and eggs are a big culprit, but that's only 1/3 of eczema. So I hope that helps, gives some tips.
So very interesting. Okay. We're going to take a short break, and then we're going to come back with some more questions and a big compliment for Dr. Copeland from one of our viewers. So stick with us.
Hello, Hello, fellow activists. In our last segment, we talked about step number 2, educate yourself. Step number 3 is get support. Now, any journey can feel overwhelming if you feel like you're walking it alone. Well, you're far from alone, because with 1 in 50 kids diagnosed with autism today, there are a lot of us out there. Of course, there's always the issue of financial support. Now, there's a handful of organizations out there that offer financial support to families in need. ACT Today, or Autism Care and Treatment Today, is one of them. Visit our website at www.act-today.org to find out more about our grant process. I want to talk about a different kind of support today, emotional support. Now, you can get that from other travelers on this path. Some of the best advice I've ever received is from the moms of other kids with autism who went to school with Wyatt or were involved with programs with him. Then there are the pioneers. These are the families that have gone through this years ago, and there was very little information out there. All of these people seem to have the desire to pay it forward. Now, one of them, Lisa Ackerman, who is one of my mentors, started an organization called TACA, Talk About Curing Autism. She actually took the concept of mentors and support groups and made it available to everybody. You can go to their website, talkaboutcuringautism.org, to find out more. During the first and most difficult year after Wyatt's diagnosis, I wrote an email to close family and friends, letting them know what was going on and the challenges our family was facing, and why we dropped out of sight. I was amazed at the outpouring of love and affection and all the help I received from that email. First, you have to be vulnerable. You can't be afraid to ask. Try this out. Could you cook me a meal? Are you going to the market? Can you pick me up a few things? Could your kids play with my kid and make them feel included? Or can you come over and clean my house? Well, maybe not that last one, except with your best friend. And maybe the best support of all is having someone that listens, and that doesn't cost a dime. So until next time, surround yourself with the loving kindness of others and keep the faith.
Welcome back to Autism Live, and we're welcoming our wonderful guest, Dr. Linda Copeland, who joins us every third Tuesday of the month. We're going to be changing that. For the next couple of months, it'll be on the third Thursday. We'll tape it on the Tuesday, but you'll see it on the Thursday. Dr. Copeland is a board-certified behavior analyst, and she is also a developmental pediatrician, so she joins us once a week to answer your questions, which is really a lovely thing, and thank you for doing that for us, Dr. Copeland.
My pleasure.
No, I assure you it's ours. Somebody wrote in and said, "Hi, Shannon and Dr. Unicorn. Thank you very much for your answers on the 2/16/16 show, catching up on the shows." And they said, "Thank you, Kelby. Learning from all the questions you answer. Thank you for explaining medical issues in plain English, and appreciate Dr. Copeland's approach of care in the minimally invasive way as possible. Thanks for answering my questions about the probiotic. My son's nose starts running on a Claire probiotic, but not on Culturelle." And she said, "FYI, because we had a conversation about this, I just called them to make sure that it's dairy-free, because we had a discussion about whether Culturelle was dairy-free." And she goes on to say that the manufacturer says when they first started, Culturelle did contain dairy. They changed their formula about 5 years ago, and it no longer has dairy. My girl and I take Claire and we're fine, but my boy's nose just runs away if he takes it. He's so sensitive he can tell you that there is a cat in the house without seeing it. And she said, "Thanks again. You are the Ellen of the autism world. Make the world a better and friendlier place, and for making us laugh." So thank you, Dr. Copeland.
Thank you. Wow.
Wonderful. And you know, I it's funny because I can tell if there's a cat in the house too, because I start to well up. It's interesting to me that they allow cats on airplanes. I was once sat next to a woman who had her cat underneath the seat, and before we even took off, I started wheezing like a crazy person, and they had to move me. And it occurred, like, nobody had ever had an issue like that before. I'm sure they do.
Yes, yeah.
But doesn't that strike you as being weird?
Sensitivity to cat dander is common.
Yeah, pretty weird. Okay, so ongoing. Dear Shannon, at Dr. Copeland's the Amazing Unicorn February Q&A, you had mentioned if Jem had an infraction with gluten, you would know. What symptoms does Jem feel or see? My boy on occasion gets an uncontrollable jaw movement. I'm guessing it's yeast. Do you or Dr. Copeland have any idea from your experience? He is exhausted after trying to control his mouth from opening uncontrollably. And she said, thank you. That's our haircut mom, and her son is 15 years old. I just want to say that for when Jem was little, if he had something that had gluten, I could tell it because we lost him. He tantrumed. The eye contact was impossible, and speech went completely away. Later, we've only had one infraction that happened later, and he had both gluten and dairy, and he broke out in hives. And I honestly don't know which one caused that, but he did break out in hives from it. And we haven't done another challenge, but nothing like that. And the uncontrollable jaw movement, Dr. Copeland, what do you think about that? Because I've never heard of that tied with yeast.
I have not either, and I think it would be unlikely, and I think it would be unlikely tied in with the gluten sensitivity either. Gluten sensitivity can do other things, we know, but I think that would be unusual. So it sounds like either a musculoskeletal or a neurological issue. So in terms of the musculoskeletal system, we have this joint here with our jaw, the temporomandibular joint, and if it's causing problems, pain, discomfort, the person might feel compelled to open and close their jaw. And we call it TMJ syndrome or temporal mandibular joint syndrome, and that can be treated either by a doctor and or a dentist. So they may want to have this young man checked by both his doctor and his dentist. But the other thing, if it's not dental and not the TMJ joint, it could be a neurological tic of some sort or a neurological movement disorder. You can get a dystonia. It comes from the brain and it involves the regulation of the muscles of the jaw. But usually that presents as difficulty opening the mouth wide enough rather than repetitive opening in terms of dystonia. But a neurologic tic could cause this repetitive movement. And I would definitely bring that up with the physicians to see if the child might have an intermittent tic.
And which physician would you go to? Just your run-of-the-mill, for a 15-year-old, is that the pediatrician?
I would start with the child's primary care doctor, which is likely a pediatrician or family medicine doctor. And if they're not certain, or if they recommend, then could possibly a referral to a neurologist.
Okay. Not to get concerned or anything, but to follow it up and see what it is that you're looking at. It's interesting because last Wednesday on Ask Dr. Doreen, somebody wrote in a question about teeth grinding, and it led to a whole discussion of, you know, the TMJ, excuse me, but we don't think this doesn't fit that sort of symptom. Not really, you don't think, or you're not sure?
Well, it's more common to have teeth grinding with TMJ, but sometimes the pain or discomfort or unevenness in the TMJ joint might kind of compel a person to open and close their mouth repetitively.
Okay. All right. And then, you know, to this viewer, write back and let us know what you find out, because it's a pretty interesting thing.
Yeah.
Okay, and then another question here. My son says that he, in quotations, sees colors sometimes when he stands up. Is that just being dehydrated? Is it something I need to be concerned with and talk to my pediatrician about?
Well, my thought on that is, how long does it last? And is it associated with any other symptoms like headache or feeling dizzy and lightheaded when you stand up? I actually, when I first read that question, I went, oh, that happens to me, and I never thought anything about it. Once in a while when I stand up, I'll just for a half second or so, I'll see a little rim of green and gold. And I think I'm just getting my bearings. And it's over with so quickly, and I feel fine. So if it's just very brief and he has no other symptoms, then it's probably not to worry. But if he's feeling dizzy or lightheaded, that could be associated with dehydrations, and especially if he has other reasons where dehydration might be an issue. Either he's been sick or had a fever, or he tends to run warm, and it's hard to get him to drink enough liquids. And certainly if there's headaches, recurrent headaches can be aggravated by kind of a mild chronic dehydration. So encouraging more fluids and water. Also, sometimes right before a migraine headache, people can see flashing colors, and it's kind of the first sign that a migraine might be coming on. So it really depends on what's associated with it.
Interesting. And so there's nothing wrong with then, for you, for instance, when you stand up and see the green and gold, there's nothing wrong with that. That's not something that needs to be addressed.
I never even thought much about it until I read the question.
Well, now I'm worried about you, Dr. Copeland. And maybe that doesn't happen for me, although I have had in the past migraines where I've seen the flashing in the side of my eye. In fact, the other day, we so very rarely get lightning here in Los Angeles, and I was up the other morning, and out of the corner of my eye I saw a flash, and I went, oh, I haven't had a migraine in forever. Am I really about to get a migraine? And it was lightning.
It really was lightning.
It really was lightning, and I went, oh, because then the thunder came like 10 seconds later, and I thought, oh, well, I guess we're having lightning and thunder and not a migraine. But I have experienced that, but it's literally like a flash bulb, like lightning. For me, it doesn't have colors. So seeing green and gold is
the color that I experience once, and I don't get it all the time, but once in a while I'll stand up momentarily, and it's very faint. It's kind of pretty, and it's like a split second, probably not even a full second. And I never really thought anything about it until I read the question. I went, oh, well, maybe, I wonder if that's what they're experiencing.
And I'll tell you what I thought of when I read the question. For our viewers who, we've had Christina Adams on the show before, and she's going to be on the show in just a couple of weeks again. She's the author of A Real Boy, which it's my favorite and first book about autism from a parent's point of view. And she was a card parent, and it details everything that she went through as a card parent with her child and how he was doing it. And there's a point in the book where her son describes to her that he sees things, conversations, and music in colors. And there's a name for it. I don't remember what the name for it was, but it's this interesting moment in the book because he says this, and the mom and the dad are sitting with him at the table, and the dad's like, what are you talking about? You see colors? And the mom says, no, I see music and colors too, that she also, that it's just how she visualizes it. And so when you said, yeah, when I saw that and I said, see colors, I was like, oh, I don't, and you said, yes, when you stand up, you see green and gold. This is outside my experience. But I'm glad that you can relate to it, to, because clearly you're okay.
Yeah, for me, I think it's pressure changes because I feel it too. It's like I'm going from laying flat to standing upright. My heart and blood vessels are adjusting. I feel the pressure on my feet and legs, and it's like this momentary, very brief.
But that's okay. That's not like a blood pressure problem.
No, because it's so momentary. Now, if I were dizzy or lightheaded, that would be different.
Okay. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. We in the news today, we're about to cover a story, Dr. Copeland, of a new study that has come out of Sweden that talks about the life expectancy of individuals who are on the autism spectrum. And it's some pretty harrowing information, especially for a parent to hear. Wow. That for people with autism that also have a learning disability on top of it, the life expectancy is 40 years. And isn't that horrifying? And this was 2 years worth of study in Sweden, and they discovered that for individuals who don't have a learning disability with autism, that the average age was 54 life expectancy in Sweden instead of 70, which is the norm in Sweden, which was really devastating. And they said that individuals with autism were more likely to have a wide range of physical diseases, including heart disease and cancers. And there's a call now for more research to be done about that, about why. And I just wonder, because to me this is absolutely out of left field. I had no idea. I would have expected if the study had come back and said that individuals with autism are more likely to die young because of something like drowning or because they've wandered, that, but I wasn't expecting it from a medical illness point of view, although I know that there is a lot of study being done about immune systems and individuals with autism. But I wondered if you had seen this study, if you had heard this.
No, I hadn't. And thank you for calling my attention to it, because I'm primarily a pediatrician. So I generally see individuals up to maybe 18 to 21 years of age. But I think this is incredibly important. Do you know if the Swedish study looked specifically at seizures? Because
Absolutely. That's one of the things that is discussed in the study. It's amazing that you would know that. That is absolutely one of the big concerns.
We do know that for individuals on the autism spectrum, they have a greater risk than the general population of having a seizure disorder. And if there's uncontrollable seizures that can happen at night or whatnot, that will shorten the lifespan. That I was aware of, but I was not aware of the risks of heart disease and cancer.
Yeah.
But as you stated, we know that the immune system is involved in autism spectrum disorders, and the way the immune system is involved differs in the different, what we call phenotypes of autism, because autism is not one condition. It's really a spectrum of many different kinds of conditions. But I will find that study and read it with great interest. That's super important.
And actually, in the study, it says for those with an associated learning disability, the leading cause that is killing is epilepsy and seizures at a rate of 40 times more than the general population. And that for people with autism who do not have a learning disability, another key factor is suicide, which is
wow.
a real bright study, but makes our day. I'm being sarcastic there, because what a depressing piece of news. But what it does do is give us the opportunity to look into these things more and be more aware and potentially turn the numbers around.
And what is hopeful is, like CARD, for instance, has huge programs now focusing on transition to adulthood and services into adulthood, because what happens with individuals with autism as they reach adulthood is they have the experience over time where they can recognize that they have some differences. Hold on, the lights just went out here.
Uh-oh.
And that can lead to a sense of isolation and depression. So by working early on with skills and social skills, and for the person to accept themselves for who they are and yet have meaningful life experience, I think we can really prevent the depression that gets reported in adults with autism spectrum.
Absolutely. We thank you so much for your time. We had a question that came in towards the end here about genetics, and I'd rather save that for next month.
Okay.
I want to tell you what it is, though. It says the field of genetics is discovering new insights into autism seemingly every month, and we are expecting a plethora of studies to be coming in the next couple of weeks as we move into Autism Awareness Month. The person wrote, what can we expect to see from the advancement of genetic discoveries in relation to the field of autism, and will interventions be introduced that can suppress the expression of autism-related genetic markers in utero? So I'll let you ponder that for a month.
Okay.
And see if that's something, if you care to look into the future to see if that's even a possibility. And somebody else wrote in that synesthesia is the term that I'm looking for to describe seeing colors, that people, synesthesia, that's exactly what it is. And thank you to the viewer for reminding me. And I do want to encourage people, check out A Real Boy, because she talks about exactly that. And Christina Adams, that author, that mom, will be with us on the last Thursday of this month. She's going to be with us. So anyway, Dr. Copeland, thank you so much for all of your wonderful insights. We're going to hope that nobody who's watching gets the norovirus, but if they do, that they have some Pedialyte on hand.
Right.
All right. Thank you so much.
Everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
We're going to take a short break, and then we're going to come back to close out the show and read a couple more of the comments that you guys have sent in. Stick with us.
What is autism? What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
I've been asking myself that for a very, very long time.
Let me think about that one.
Trying to, just,
Jeez. Let me think. Oh man, that's a rough one. Yes.
autism,
Autism is a neurological disorder that affects many of our kids in different ways.
It's a learning disability that affects the cognitive functions of the brain.
A lot of people have the misconception that it's a disability, and it's really not.
I look at it as like a special gift.
When one person thinks differently from another.
It's an opportunity for everyone to learn to understand someone that's a little different than them. Autism is the ability to educate.
They're given so much talent in different areas.
To me, autism means a chance to be with and be around people you really care about. Autism is beautiful.
It's a way of seeing the world differently.
It's always unique, totally intelligent, and sometimes mysterious.
Happiness that comes out of my son's hard work.
It's a movement.
Unpredictable.
That's right.
Awesome. Love. The field I want to work in.
Laughter, fun, joy. Autism is beautiful to me.
I want you to remember these three words. There is hope.
Welcome back. We're here at the end of the show. I just want to take a couple of minutes to talk about some comments that I didn't see when Nava Paskowitz-Asner was here. Somebody wrote in and said, "Dear Shannon, caught the tail end of your interview. You ladies are so amazing, doing so much and looking beautiful despite the health challenges. No excuse for me not to get moving now." Well, you know, I'm trying to get moving. It's hard though, but they wrote in and said, "Thank you for the inspiration and thank you for continuing to be an inspiration." Another person said, "Your show is so timely, how you talk about acceptance and not necessarily contentment. I can understand my anger now and how I avoid interaction with my wonderful child so that I don't have to see and deal. You are the best." You know, I really want to recommend if that's your issue, and for a lot of times that's me, I always think back that, you know, I love me some Oprah. And when Oprah was being sued and she had to move her entire show to Texas, and she was being sued because she'd had people on her show that said something, and then she said, "Oh my gosh, I'm never going to eat another hamburger ever again." And the sales of hamburger went down, so the meat industry was suing her for having made that statement, which, you know, and she just kept on saying, "I'm not allowed to say that I don't want to eat hamburger anymore." And she just kept going over and over and over it. And she was like, and I can relate to that so well. Like, really? Like, seriously? I you know, whatever the infraction is of something, just to go over and over it 100 times. And that's how Dr. Phil came into being, because Dr. Phil was hired as the psychologist to come on and talk to her because she wasn't facing what was happening and dealing with it. And he came in and said, "Yeah, no, this is what's happening. Buy a vowel, get with the program." And I remember being inspired because it's so easy to get caught in that conundrum, right? But when we get into acceptance, we don't have to be content with it, but we go, this is happening. I don't like it. I don't agree with it. And here's what I'm going to do about it. But this is what's happening. I really want to recommend, though, doing Byron Katie's book, Loving What Is. If that is your issue, and it certainly is mine, that's the best book there is for that particular thing. Okay, so tomorrow on the show, you're not going to believe this is great. We have Dr. Dorian Grandpichet, and then our special guest is Jack Creamer. He's got a documentary that's out right now that talks about autism and gaming and gamers. I know, putting it all together, full circle moment. You're going to want to see that. Until tomorrow, give your kiddos a hug from me. Bye-bye for now.